Hey guys, welcome back to my workbench. It's Dan here as always, and I want to build another tank car. And so far we've been trucking along pretty well on some tank car projects, and there's some that I probably won't film because they're going to be a little bit more labor intensive. I'll show them later, and others as we get into them I think are worth showing because I can get in and be able to spend a little bit more time talking about it. The next car project we're going to do is building a chlorine tank car using one of these Atlas 17,000 gallon, 600 gallon, or what is it, 17,600 gallon cars, I believe. This is an older design by Atlas. Atlas has mostly done ACF prototype tank cars. I think actually they've only done ACF prototype tank cars, and a lot of these are very outdated 70s, 80s prototypes, maybe even farther back than that. But obviously a prototype like this can still be upgraded into something that's usable for modern day. And what I'm going to be building for modern day is what I'm going to pull up on my phone right now. Sorry guys, I didn't have prototype photos pulled up, but basically we're going to be building one of these, and if we can zoom in on this, this is an OLNX chlorine tank car. And this is a nice two-tone scheme, and this basically is the exact same dimensions as the model presented here. Now, a couple things to point out that are obviously going to have to get changed. Obviously all the underbody braking, everything like that's going to have to get changed as usual. Top hatches, fittings, and railings, that's all going to have to get scratch built because that's basically all one big platform. The car body is a completely flush design here. There's no differences in panel size. What I mean by this is if we take the model, here's the frustrating part, notice the difference in the panels. One small, one large, one small. It looks like a bunch of PVC fittings joined together. We're going to have to fix this, and that's going to be an annoying thing on this car, and it's going to be a process of reskinning a tank car, which I don't think I've ever filmed before, but I think that should make an interesting part to addressing when I get to it on this particular model. Now, in terms of major surgery, everything on the underbody and on the ends is going to have to come off and get replaced. There's one thing. The other thing that we're going to get into has to do with the ends. The ACF prototypes have these flush ends that meet the car body. You have that lip there. The prototype we're building has the flush rivet or flush weld end cap, where this is an actual end cap, as this is built into the car body. We're going to have to basically bring in this car here. As an example, I'm not going to be using this exact car to do this, but we're going to basically have to take an Athearn 16,000 gallon tank car, and what we're going to have to do is take these ends off, take these platforms off, use these, and basically cross-pollinate parts from the Athearn car to use on the Atlas car. So, you know, it gets into some interesting realms of tank car kit bashing and modifying, but that's what it takes to build something like this. You know, these aren't commercially made cars, and it's been very frustrating because I've wanted a couple models of these for years, and I have the courage and determination to do it now that I've gotten a couple more builds under my belt. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all this on the bottom off, take all this on the top off, except the hatch. The hatch will be useful. That's going to be a useful fitting, although we're going to have to build a platform around it. These ladders we might be able to reuse. Trucks, coupler pockets, all that gone. Ends, remove, reskin the car body just on the panels to meet the height here. I suppose if you wanted to, you could try to sand these down, but that's an awful lot of work. It's also an awful lot of work to have to reskin the car body again, but I would rather do that than have to try to sand all this down because it would just be uneven. You'd have a lot of scratches and stuff that you'd have to try to fix, and I just don't want to deal with that. So that's going to be the easiest way to do this. First step here, let's go ahead and set this guy aside. We don't need it right now. We're only going to be focusing on rebuilding the car body portion of this and disassembling it for now. So let me go in and take all these parts off first. Okay, so bear with me through all the shaky bits here, but basically what I've done is I've removed the end caps, and we now have a bare car body. Very bare car body. First problems. We can remove these pieces, these oversized clunky pieces, just fine, until we get to the mounting. This is molded in the car body, I did not know that. So we're going to have to take a Dremel and grind all the raised pieces off, and then everything else we're going to have to shave off with a X-Acto chisel, like the little mount there, the brake line. We're going to have to take all that off because it is going to interfere with us repaneling some of these portions of the car body. But it should only take a few minutes to actually grind this off, but this is definitely one of those cases where you're going to want a Dremel wheel to go in there and very carefully cut the bits of plastic off. And the good news is that if we get this all flush with the car body, we're going to rewrap this with styrene anyway, and you're not going to see any of the residual stuff. These weird molding, or these screw holes, are also signature Atlas thing that's really annoying. I don't know if I'm going to fill those or not. Not sure. We'll probably have some holes to fill later on, but I'm going to wait till the very last steps of building to do that before we paint it. So what we're going to do is just start prepping this car body first. Once we do that, then I'm going to take my 16,000 gallon tank car, and we'll get some parts like the end shields, things like that, and we'll graft everything together. I do have two of these, which I'm going to be using. These are part sources. I got these for 20 a piece, so these should work out well. And it'll obviously give us a whole other tank body we can use for another project, and some other components that we can use that'll be very useful. But we are sacrificing the car itself, like the ends and the bolster pads. But it's just part of it, so we'll make it work. So I actually think this is going to work perfectly, and I formulated a new plan here. I'm not going to do individual panels because this whole car body is so long. What I'm going to do is I've cut a strip of styrene out to overlap all this, and it's going to meet our new ends. The new ends here are the Athearn pieces, and as it turns out, they're the exact size I need. Look at that. Basically perfect. And they have a slight bit of overlap to them, where the styrene skin should meet them really well. So what we'll do is we'll lay the styrene skin on first, and then we'll clean up the edges to meet the tank head, if that makes sense. How you measure this stuff is pretty simple. What you do is you take the piece of styrene over the panels, however long you need it to be, and then you would make a measurement right there from end to end, and then basically one mark on one end, and then at the other end of the styrene another mark, and then you cut it out of a sheet of styrene like this. And by the way, this is 0.005 inch. This is paper thin, construction paper thin styrene. It has to be thin, and it will hopefully cover all of the stuff that we've ground off here at the bottom pretty nicely. So this should work, I think. By the next clip, you guys will be able to see all this fabricated. I won't show the whole process, but basically what I do is I take super glue, start at one, well actually you want to start from the underbody. The idea is you wrap this whole thing underneath, and then that'll give you your lines. Another thing I'm going to do real quick is I'm actually going to scribe my panel lines now, so that when I lay the styrene on, my panel lines will already be on. That'll be really important, so I'm going to go ahead and do that first. Here's what actually skinning the tank looks like. What you do is you start at the bottom, not the top. You start at the bottom so you have that whole seam there you can hide. And then you start gluing all the way around the tank body. Now the key thing here is when you get to this section here, let me zoom in here so you guys can see this. When you guys get to this section, you can see the opaque area there, which actually will help us. You need to make sure this is absolutely tight, but right now what we're going to do is we're going to nip the styrene right there, and right there. There we go. And now what we'll be able to do is with our straight edge, we'll cut that so we get a clean line, and then we'll continue to wrap all the way around the car body, if that makes sense. So that should be pretty easy overall. Alright guys, so I had the whole tank body scanned in about an hour. All these sections here, one section, second section, middle section, to even it out. And then what I did was I took fine sandpaper, wrapped it around the car body, and twisted it in my hand to sand all the contours and everything super smooth. That way I can get the best smooth section here. And even then it didn't really turn out the best, I will say. I could use a little bit more sanding and a little bit more truing up with some cement. But the weld lines and everything like that ended up holding pretty well. Now, once I did that, the end shields were installed. And I really recommend that you add the end shields before you skin it. That way you can bring the skin right up to the tank shield. I did not do it on this end, and as you can see, there's a slight difference in length between the end shields, which really bugs me, but at this point there's nothing else I can change because there's no material to remove. So that's what it is. Lesson learned. I got to build at least one, maybe two more of these, so I'll know what to do next time at least. But as you can see, it's been skinned. And then to maintain our center line, I've taken a strip of tape between the end shields and drawn our line on there. That way we know the exact distance between the bottom, which is roughly in this area. I tried to line it up as best as I could, as straight as possible, because it's got to be straight when we put on our tank saddles. Now the tank saddles I'm going to use are the Atherns, and these will work fine. It just means we won't have to scratch build our own, which I'm not complaining about. What we are going to have to do is shave these down a little bit. As you can see, I've kind of sanded them a little bit to get a different contour. That way they'll actually fit on the tank body like that. If you can see that. And I am going to have to modify them a little bit by adding some material as well. But I'll wait to do that until the tank body is secured in place like this. And then we'll be able to make all that work. But this actually will save me a little bit of time here, because that means I don't have to completely scratch build new end walkways and everything like that, which I was not looking forward to on this car. So that's actually an even better deal, because it just means really all I got to do is take the under parts off the tank body of the Athearn car, and for the most part it means I don't have to completely disassemble this, so I can save this whole section here for another tank build. We're pretty much done with this car unless there's some other components we need, which is nice. So that can be built into something else. I can use really any kind of different component I want and pretty much make whatever I want out of that. Anyways, so yeah, we got a little bit more truing up of the tank body to do. As you can see, there's just some areas that are sticking up, which is really annoying. And then tomorrow I will attach both those sections there, and I'll be able to build a new plate behind it. And then once we do that, like before, I'm going to do all of the underbody piping, brake rigging, and everything like that first before I do anything on the top of the car, right here. So, I think that'll work out fine. That hole you see there, that's just the opening for where the old hatch used to be. So that'll help us to also center up the hatch. So yeah, we have little indicators that'll help keep everything lined up for us. Don't be worried either. You can see all these little lumpy things and stuff like that. It looks like it's all dented up. What that is the glue underneath. It creates these little wavy things. There are some dents, as you can see. But what I'm going to do once I get this trued up is I'm going to spray this entire tank body with automotive primer. That's going to give us a whole new layer and fill some of the imperfections and cracks and a lot of the sanding marks too from all the sanding I did on the tank body here. That's going to help to fill a lot of that in. So that'll definitely help, but we'll do that after we install these, because again, this is marked so that we can put everything in center in terms of the bolster pads and everything like that. That all has to be directly dead center, completely aligned down the car body as exactly as possible. So that's why we're going to need to keep all this as is for now. But so far so good. I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. Did a lot of work today and I'm honestly pretty pleased with that. So call it a night and look back at it tomorrow. Hey guys, let me make a quick insertion here away from our main car body project. First and foremost, I made a mistake when I did this. I should have just reskinned the entire car. I didn't plan on reskinning the center section here, and that's why this ended up coming out kind of funky. Again, I think I can fix this once it's primed and painted. I think I can blend this in. But I will show you a better method. It's honestly better to reskin the entire car. One sheet, and the method I'm using here is again the 0.05 inch. I've scribed the lines same way I showed, and then starting at the bottom, what you would do is take this piece of styrene with enough bend, you would come across like this, and then from that point on, you'd be able to come in here and just literally wrap the entire car like this, and it'll get you a much smoother, cleaner result. As you can see, this is what you should do. So honestly, sometimes we make mistakes when we do projects like this and we don't think ahead. I'm doing a couple more of these, and this is the way I'm going to do all of them from now on. So the way I'm going to show you guys everything else that I filmed from this tank car on, just know this was not the best way of doing it, and this obviously had the issues with the ends too. So my insertion here, after you stripped all the little parts off this car, make sure you install the ends, make sure that they're perfectly aligned, have the hatch, everything removed. Everything is stripped here. Okay? Once you do that, then you can reskin it. Best way I found to do this, and again, this is the best method to do all these cars. Now, if you're going to do something more of like a funnel flow design where you have that bow and that angle, that might need a little bit more adjusting, and that sheet is not going to line up. This will only work if you have a smooth side car like this that has straight ends and is not a funnel flow design. These are straight car body tank cars. And from my experience, it's a little bit harder to wrap a funnel flow, but in this case we're not doing a funnel flow car, we're doing one of these, so this is what I'm going to be doing from now on. Well, this has turned out to be quite an immense project at this point, and it's been a lot of learning to try to solve problems right now. Unfortunately, skinning these cars has not been as simple as I thought it would, and from prior experience, yeah, this just turned out to be a lot harder. The reason why, it was because the glue kept melting the styrene, and it was causing me lots and lots of issues. So, as you can see, the seams and everything got messed up, and I was trying to tack them down. I spent days trying to repair all this stuff and putty things, and fortunately, the main part of the car bodies, they didn't get affected, so this is the part you're going to be seeing. It's all underneath, but it was still annoying. But basically, the way I found to remedy this, or the best way I found, is actually to only use super glue on the seam where you're going to glue it to the car body first, and then you apply white glue to the rest of the styrene portion and wrap it around the tank body, and then glue the other half to the tank body with super glue. So only this section has super glue. You can try to clamp this all together if you'd like, but what I found was sticking a straight edge right against that adjoining piece of styrene, pressing it down and letting the glue dry was the best way I found to do this. So you can see it overlaps the ends pretty well, and this is the last one I did. I finished this one today. Just a little bit of truing up on the car body. You can see some things didn't line up exactly how they should be, so I'm going to have to clean these up a little bit. But I'm building 3 of these, and this one was the hardest one. The reason this one has all this black on it was because I had to body putty quite a bit of damage to the seams and try to blend some of the dents out that were caused by the sanding and things of that sort. You can see even that, and it's still not exactly perfect, and it's what it is. At the top here, this got damaged, so I had to putty and fill this. So hopefully that all paints out okay. But yeah, I knew this was going to be a tough project, but considering that I didn't have to cut the tank body and graft things together, which I absolutely hate, even being that we only had to reskin this was still a major time-consuming project, and especially having to do 3. I kind of, in hindsight, wish I would have only done the 1, but I got ambitious. I was trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone and focus on getting all the processes done at once so that I didn't have to keep going and reskinning a car, because it's just a burden, and it really slowed me down. So anyways, these are all pretty much ready for the next stage of the build, which is the good thing. After a little bit more body puttying and sanding to blend these seams out, then I should be good. But from this point on, I'm going to be working on getting all of these sections added to the car bodies. So that's going to be the next important step, and then once we get these on, then we can go in and do all of the brake components, everything like that. And I'm going to do all that assembly style. While I'm doing everything, I can just bend a bunch of wire sections up and have everything assembled in a matter of maybe about 2-3 hours to do all 3 of these. So I think that that'll be the best course now. But yeah, I'm honestly glad that this main step here is done, because it really was a burden. And we got that done now, so we can go ahead and move on to some other more fun detailing parts to this project. Alright, what have I gotten done so far here in the last couple weeks? Actually, not as much as I was hoping to get, but it's been quite a process doing this work, especially the fact that I'm doing 3 of these. But I have made some significant progress. I've almost entirely tied up the underbody work to the cars so far. So let me go ahead and show you guys what I've gotten done here. So I've installed the Athearn end railings with the coupler pockets, the photo etch walkways. All the grab irons obviously are stock, which is nice. It's a good starting point. These were just very carefully positioned and aligned on the tank body after I did all the car body wrapping, obviously. Once those were installed, glued in place, then I was able to do all of the brake piping. So you have the main brake line and then some of the other components. The brake components on these cars are actually pretty simple, and oddly enough, I can't seem to find any kind of discharge valve at the bottom of this car. I don't know if it's just a little cap or if these are unloaded from the top. I don't know how these are unloaded, but this is the only car. I mean, I've seen other cars like this where they'll have this style of underbody that doesn't have an obvious discharge outlet like a lot of other cars do. So until I find better photos of that or see one in person where I can get up close and actually look under there, I'm going to leave these as is, and of course that's a part I can always go back and add later. But the other nice thing about the brake piping components is that it does help to kind of conceal some of that ugly seam stuff going on there. I did also join these end pieces up with these little slope plates to kind of cover that up, as you can see. The trucks will fit nice on these, and then I added the personnel railings to the side. And then I also made my own little Trinity style jack pad attached to the saddle. And then added the placards to the sides. I removed the seam and the little mounting for the railing on the ends, both ends. Added my own brake wheel housing. I'll install the brake wheel when this is obviously painted. But for the most part, we got most of the underbody components done. These cars are ready to start getting built from the frame up now. And it's the same story for all of these. And my thought process here is I'm going to do 2 OC PX, or no, excuse me, OCPX. Sorry, my brain is tired. These are going to be the OLNX cars, and then I'm going to make this one a TILX car, so a Trinity Industries car, and then these are going to be the OLNX, just so I have some variety in these builds. Now, the interesting thing with the OLNX versions is that these have these little GPS trackers on them, and they're actually mounted at the top of the car body on a little platform like this, a little pedestal. So I scratch built that out of styrene and glued them to each end of the tank bodies there. As you can see, again, all the detailing is pretty much the same. Brake lines, brake rigging components, all scratch built from brass wire, phosphor bronze wire, styrene. So yeah, these are looking pretty good, and obviously once these are all painted, then I can go back and I'll add the little GPS tracker square. It basically looks like a little chip. I'll paint that silver and then attach that separately. So at this point we're ready to go ahead and start working on the top portion of the car. And like I said, it's been quite a lot of work to get to the point where we are at now. A considerable amount of work. So I'm glad that at least this portion of things is done, because it really was dragging out for a while. And it was taking a lot of time to be quite frank. So I've had to kind of take a break, set these aside, and as you can see, I've already started to do some other projects because I got an accumulation of cars I want to do. One's to keep, one's to sell. I got tank cars, all this stuff in the back, and then I got a whole pile of stuff that I got to work on up there. So I think from this point on, what I'm going to try to do is just keep building everything assembly line style, where one day I do the top railings and fittings, and the next day I'm building the railings themselves for all three, and then I'll do any other end detailing, and then when it comes time to painting, I'll do one day dedicated to just masking the things, painting them white, then doing the black band with the black underbody trim. That is the best way I'm going to do this. It'll be the easiest way to tackle all this, and then of course I'm going to have to make sure I have enough data for all these. I'm probably going to have to order another decal sheet just to do all the data alone, but that's what ends up happening normally when you do 3D cars, because you want all the data to match up, and so you end up eating a lot of that data up, because a lot of times even on the Smokebox graphics decal sheet, you only have enough data really to do two of the same kind of car. So that's why you have to usually buy several decal sets so you have enough decals. Anyways, again, there's that end body process, and the reason I had to remove that lip or that weld seam that's on the end of these tank shields is because in some cases when I glued these end shields back onto the car body, they were slightly lopsided, and that was throwing my means of positioning these completely off. Sorry about that. So I ended up erasing those entirely and then just repositioning and aligning everything so that everything was perfectly straight. So if we look at the underbody, you can see those line up really well, like it was built that way. It's a little tedious, it's a lot of work, but it's the best way I found to do this. So just glad all that underbody stuff is done. I had to order more brass wire to do the railings too, and that's Detail Associates brass wire. The phosphor bronze 020 or 015 would have worked, but I didn't have any on hand, and quite frankly this stuff is a lot straighter and it's just easier to bend, and it's going to be a lot easier to use this when it comes time to actually making the handrails on the top and for the ends, because this stuff bends a little bit easier. It's easier to cut as well. The phosphor bronze wire is good, but it is a little bit tougher and it eats up your blades and your nippers a little bit quick. So that's why I'm using the brass wire, because brass wire is nice and soft and easy to chew through. And you can cut it to precise sizes, and if you need to, you can do fine precision cutting with a nail clippers. So we'll see what we get out of the next clip of this, but I'm going to just kind of keep chipping away at these right now and try to get some more progress done this week. So I'll see you guys in the next clip.